Hi, Inman World. It is my pleasure to be talking to Josh Team and Glenn Kelman, who have never appeared together before on the Inman stage. So we talked before this about our mutual excitement about this panel. And I think I'm going to just jump right into it with the two of you. And your models have a fundamental difference in where you're trying to drive value. Glenn, your model is a lower cost commission model that's really trying to improve value to the consumer. And Josh, your model is, generally a full commission model where you're trying to accrue value to the agents. Let's hop right in and talking about what do we think are the differences between those approaches and why have you pursued the models that you have? Glenn, maybe once.
Well, I think it's mission driven. It hasn't come from some economic calculation. Why get involved in real estate unless you really have a commitment to making it better? If you put your customers first, the most sincere way to do that is by giving them good value for their money. Redfin and Keller Williams do that in different ways, but we just decided that we can give the customer a better deal and we can still have the agent earn a good living. And the ultimate arbiter of that is going to be the customer herself. We believe that the winner in real estate is going to be chosen by consumers, not by the agent, that the agent will follow where the customers are going. And so we just always wanted to give our agents the best product to sell, the best value proposition. And everyone's trying that as well, but this is just our take on it.
I think the Keller Williams approach is we're a data-driven company, and the data we think speaks pretty loudly here. There's more consumers using an agent now than as long as back as we can go in reporting history of that stat. And the consumer is best served, and they're choosing to work with more agents because they experience better. And so the question we ask is, how do we create the best consumer experience when that's going to be in business with the best agents? We probably differ with Redfin a little bit around we don't believe the agents follow the industry. We do believe the agents are continuing to innovate and lead the industry to being the best fiduciary for that consumer, which is why they continue to have so many consumers choose to affiliate with an agent. And the fundamental question when we talk about value in the transaction to the consumer is, in their model, they believe that limiting the agent opportunity economically they can still create a good consumer experience. And we believe that the data having an uncapped potential and really pouring in for agents to have the most economic opportunity attracts the most powerful fiduciaries. And we believe that is why we're in business with so many award-winning agents. And in the last part of 2020, in the recovery of real estate, we were one of, if not the fastest growing in market share and unit count real estate company on the planet. It's because we fundamentally believe, and the data supports it, if you're in business with the best agents, you do provide the best consumer experience and you continue to take market share.
But we pay our agents more than you do. The average agent at Redfin earns more than the average agent at Keller.
I don't have any of that data in front of me. I will tell you in 2020, we saw our agents grow exponentially in how much money they took home. And we believe that, I think the exact number in front of me was, I can pull the exact stats, but as how much money our agents earned as a commission we're very proud of that number, and we can provide that stat.
Right, but if you're going to say that your agents are higher paid than ours, you should know what your agents earn and what our agents earn. So,
right, but I was saying
with the year of tenure at Redfin earns about $100,000 a year. And it moves up from there. I think there's more upside where a small fraction of agents in the traditional industry can earn millions of dollars in commissions each year, but the typical agent at Redfin, I think, is earning more on average than at just about any other brokerage. Obviously, they're more productive, but they're also making more money.
Yeah, I can't speak to your numbers, but I will say that what I was referring to is we don't cap the opportunity. And so I do know that a lot of the Keller Williams agents that we have are, again, we try to be in the relationship with the best agents, and some of the agents we have come from Redfin because they feel like the opportunity gets capped. It doesn't come from everywhere. And when they want that uncapped opportunity, we attract those agents who want to go to that next level to provide an experience to grow their life at a bigger level.
I understand the point.
But
It's just hard to hear that Redfin is an alternative that doesn't involve agents whatsoever. Obviously, we've employed agents for 15 years, and we just have a lower attrition rate. If you look at our retention of agents, it's 13% better than the industry average. We've measured that every year for 6 years. I think this is the best place to be a real estate agent. I couldn't ask someone to work here unless I believe that wholeheartedly. And we've just put all this data together about retention rates, productivity, customer satisfaction, and agent income. And so it's hard to be on a panel where we hear over and over again that actually our agents are underpaid when we have the highest average pay, when we offer healthcare and no one else does or few do. So I want to be diplomatic, Josh, but I think there are Redfin agents making over $500,000 a year. It's a good life here.
No one's challenging. I think both organizations can with pride say we believe we're great agent value. I think, when we look at it though, we have agent communities making 5 million plus, right? And I think the only point I was trying to make was we have an uncapped opportunity for agents because we believe that attracts the best fiduciaries that helps them create the best consumer experience agent fit. I don't know your data. I don't know your numbers. I'm not speaking to your quality program you have for your agents.
I was asking you about your data on your people and what their average pay is.
Yeah, so I don't have that data right in front of me. What I can tell you is that last year we grew by our agents took home like 12 to 14% more money than the year before, and we had the best growth period in the second half of last year than any other real estate company. We're inching up to 11% market share, and we're really proud of what our agents have been able to do, and that they're building an uncapped life, and we're proud of that. And we have slightly different models, but I think both of us can stand and say we believe we're doing the right things for both consumers and agents.
yeah, but I think what's interesting to me about this is that it's also a fundamentally different vision of the role of the brokerage and potentially of the role of the agent. And I think we started with some of that in terms of where value accrues, but Glenn, it feels to me like your focus ultimately is on, you're willing to do whatever you need to do to ensure that the consumer has the most consistent experience in buying a home. And
Best.
Josh,
we're both trying to be the best for our customers. Right,
but I think your customer might be different, right? That I think Keller may see the agent as their customer, and then you see the buyer or the seller as your customer, and I think that builds a very different type of organization.
That's probably true. I think that we're all in this together at Redfin, so our agents' customers are also my customers, and my goal is to help our agents serve customers better by giving them better technology, better products, better value to sell. So even if you work at a traditional brokerage and recruiting is your #1 goal and the agent is your customer, you still want to deliver better service than other brokerages. You want customers to have an affinity. When someone comes to Redfin, they should expect better service. They know the price that they're going to pay. They know how the experience is going to be different, that they'll get into houses faster, that we'll invest in staging the property and other concierge service. So I think we've tried to develop a standard of service to be better for the customer because we also think that's better for the agent.
I would think, and I agree with that. I think that what I heard you say there, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but is that you're using technology as a core component of your strategy to create that predictable experience. We've been building technology to try to empower our agents with their customers, and we do see it slightly differently. We see the customer as our agent's customers, and they build businesses around their customers. And instead of us trying to create a more predictable experience, we believe we should empower the agents, because we believe that transactions that are specific on real estate are so unique to each individual and each family, each home, that the local expert needs all the tools available to curate that experience for them on the ground. And so we've been focusing our technology resources is making sure agents have the mechanism to solve the problem that they're faced with in that moment versus what you've done at Redfin, which is create more of that predictable transaction for the consumer with your agents. And I would agree with that. I think that summarizes that, the different strategies well.
Josh, can I ask you a quick question? Do you see the buyer and seller as your customer as well?
No, we see our agents as our customer, and the buyer and the seller is our agents' database. It's their business, it's their customer, and what we are entrusted to do as their partner in this is make sure they have the value and the tools they need to grow that business and serve their customers at the highest level. We're their partner to ensure, and we hold ourselves accountable to making sure that more agents choose to build their business with us as their partner, and that we're growing, that more consumers choose us to transact their home with our agents, and that way our agents are holding us accountable to be their partners, and then we have to make sure that we can help them continue to grow market share, and that's how we think of it.
I think that, I think an interesting question that then I would then pose to both of you is, we talk so much about technology, but technology is also aligned with innovation and sort of cultures of innovation where technology can actually be accepted and adopted. So Glenn, you have a culture where you can actually basically enforce the adoption of technology with a focus on a certain type of customer experience. And Josh, that's a lot more challenging in the typical brokerage model. The flip side is that I think there's entrepreneurialism and creativity that can come in the typical brokerage model that maybe there's less space for in a Redfin type model. So Glenn, what do you see as the advantages of having a more, let's say, a model with more oversight?
Well, it's an employee model, and I think the advantage is that we can invest in the customer experience, but we've learned the limits of that. You still have to have an entrepreneurial agent, as Josh said, because the person closest to the customer, the person who knows the local market, just needs the latitude to find a way for every single customer to win. And I don't know that I recognized that at the outset. At first, we were the board. We wanted it to be exactly the same everywhere. Now we know that there are certain capabilities that every single customer seems to want. Every buyer wants to get into a home very fast. And so we've had to build a call center and tour scheduling technology and teams to get people into homes fast. We haven't found a market where that isn't true. But there are other parts of the market, other parts of the transaction where we've just had to adjust locally. So we try to pick our spots. You can't be opinionated about how an agent does every aspect of her business because she's not going to be able to make her customers happy when she's always wondering, what would Glenn Kelman do? But there are a few areas where we're very opinionated, and it's about speed and value, and ultimately just about the strategy and the mission to put customers first. That if you're completely sales focused instead of being the fiduciary that Josh talked about, where you really honor what the customer's going through to move her whole life across the country and find a new home, you should work somewhere else if you're not willing to put that first.
Yeah. And Josh, so Glenn is talking about a model where he's basically controlling the majority of the activity and then giving space to riff, or maybe it gets closer to 50-50 in certain places. But in the independent contractor model, we really, the brokerage can control very little of what the entrepreneur agent is doing. So why do you think that's a better model?
Yeah, so in Glenn's case, he's the boss, and he's in this balancing act, as we all are with our employees, of defining what do we control and what do we give the latitude to in that employee-boss relationship. And there's advantages to that, and there's challenges with that. And in our world, I think in some areas it's easier to build technology in that world, because you can say, here's what we're going to go do, here's what we're going to go implement it, and then we can use the data to determine if we're right or wrong. In our model, we have to go to our agents and ask them, what do we need? What do you need to be successful? And we have to earn the right to be their partner every day. Every day is a question on, what do you need to move your business forward one more step? And we have to earn every click of that button in our system. We have to earn every transaction they want to use with the Keller Williams logo. And then the only way we can do that is by making sure that they see there's more value being with us, not with us. And so that changes the relationship a little bit, where we're having to come and we don't get to tell them what to do as much. We have to ask them, what can we do to serve you at the higher level today? And if we don't do that well, we go out of business. And so one of the ways to think about that is when some companies like Zillow or Redfin talk about AI, artificial intelligence, that's around machine learning and data. At Keller Williams, we have machine learning, but the AI is as much about artificial intelligence as it is about agent intelligence. We've got 10 times the amount of agents and 10 times the amount of market share. And so we have to earn the right to do business with them to get that data, so that we can use the machine learning to make the agents smarter so they can continue winning market share. And that only happens in our role by asking, how can we be a better partner to you today than we were yesterday?
I really think we share the same humility on this point, Josh. I have less control over our agents than you imagine I do. I think the two primary points of control are on the way in and the way out. So 1 out of 10 people who apply for a real estate agent job at Redfin get it. And then we do fire about 5 to 10% of our workforce per year because the service isn't to the standard that we want it to be. And mostly we figure that out by customer success rates and customer satisfaction. But in between, what happens between an agent and a customer in an open house, during a tour, while driving around the neighborhood, I'm long past the point of trying to control that. There's no way that you can. So our project is to please, just like yours. My number one metric as a CEO is to be the best employer in real estate. That's the first point we make at every board meeting is, have we progressed or regressed on that point? Because it's just a group of highly paid volunteers who show up every day and decide they want to work at Redfin or Keller or somewhere else. They're getting poached and recruited like crazy. And so it's a free country. They have to want to be at each of our brands.
We agree then. We share a charter in serving the agent by level.
Let's wrap up with a final question. One thing that's interesting to me is I've heard both of you talk about how you're sort of spending to make the change that you want to make in the industry. Glenn, at times I've heard you talk about, being really conscious of every dollar spent. And Josh, I've heard you talk about the willingness that you and Gary have had to invest to get to a place where you're building a best-in-class company. How do you perceive that difference?
So the material difference, and from my perspective, is that Gary Keller is the primary owner of Keller Williams, and we're not publicly traded, and so the only person I'm accountable to is Gary Keller, and making sure that we achieve the vision of providing the best value to agents to continue growing and letting them build the biggest businesses worth owning. And I think that that allows us the latitude of doing things that maybe shareholders wouldn't agree with on the mathematics of a return or on a timetable. So we have this lot more freedom in making investments. And as Gary comes from being an agent and running a brokerage, he has a lot of empathy and a lot of connection to our constituents. And so our partners are agents, and what they need to accomplish to grow a business, he's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that end, even at his own personal detriment. And I think that gives us a lot of latitude and freedom to do what we think is important. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm grateful for the opportunity to work in this organization.
So the question is how I view investing in technology.
Well, actually, I think the question is that I've heard you say a number of times that, you really think about every penny you spend as a CEO. And, actually, interestingly, Glenn, I think I've heard you frame that from the same perspective that Josh is talking about, Gary framing it, that you think about spending every penny on behalf of the organization.
Well, we just have a saying at Redfin that we're all paid by the sweat of an agent's brow. So if you're going to be in the service business, you have to have that humble service ethic. And part of that is, you can't go to conferences and dine on steak and lobster from one weekend to the next. You have to bust your ass for your agents. And nobody's ever questioned Gary about that, or Josh for that matter. But sometimes technology companies have been hubristic about it, where they're just really aggressive about spending, and they don't recognize that the money they're spending is their customers' money, or that they have their hand in the agent's pocket. And my commitment is that if we're going to put our hand in our agent's pocket to build technology, it's going to be technology that they really want. And the ultimate test of that is that customers want to work with us instead of somebody else, because an agent works at Redfin instead of somewhere else. And that is a very high bar. As both Josh and I realize, it's really hard to create differentiation through technology. And mostly that comes back to speed of service, quality of marketing, and then the ability to make the home look better.
Fantastic. Guys, I feel like we could continue this conversation, but we're out of time for today.
Yeah.
I hope we have an opportunity to continue to chat at some point in the future, and it's always a pleasure to get to talk to each of you and the two of you together. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's an honor.